Welcome to this session on accelerating the transition to circular cities. My name is John Elkington. I'm a director of a London-based change agency called Volans. I'm also part of the BMW Foundation's Responsible Leaders Network, and it's probably one of the reasons I find myself here today. I'm also a complete sucker. I love oxymoron. So the idea of creative bureaucracy works for me. We're going to talk about cities, as I've already mentioned, and particularly as key players in relation to tackling the global climate emergency. I was in Shanghai a couple of years back, and I was talking to a government official who just written and published a report on Shanghai's future. And I was saying to her, I'd seen more construction effort in that city than I'd seen in the rest of my life put together, pretty much. But she was talking in her report of a 2-degree future where half of Shanghai goes underwater, or a 4-degree future where pretty much all of it goes under water. And I was asking her the question, are we completely clinically insane that we continue to build while knowing that some of our major coastal cities are going to go under water? She didn't have an answer. She just said the political pressure is so great. So the questions we'll be asking would include, how much progress are cities making in relation to the climate agenda? And what's coming next for them? And particularly, where do we see emerging best practice? Now, I'm not an expert on cities, although I was trained, my postgraduate degree was in city planning, but that was back in the early 1970s. And the main reason I sort of come to Finland at the moment is I chair an advisory council within Neste on sustainability and new markets. Now, we have two main presenters in this session. And the first is Mika Sulkinoja, and I very much apologize for mangling people's names. You can do the same to me if you're minded to do so. Mika is a leading specialist in carbon neutral circular economies at SITRA, and very actively involved clearly in the World Circular Economy Forum. And then there's Marlena Ahonen, who's a circular economy specialist, also at SITRA, very much interested in taking a holistic approach to the world and to systems and to cities, and focusing in particularly on the human side, on people. Now, we're going to hear from them some commentary around what's already happened in the event, and they'll build that around a couple of short videos, or several short videos. So Mika and Marlena, can I hand over to you, please?
Yes, thank you kindly, John. I must admit, I'm a huge fan of your work, and really great to be here. And hopefully we can offer you some solutions through circular economy for cities, as well as tools on how to figure out how to do better, how to make the sea level not rise so high. My name is Marlena Ahonen, and as John stated, I work as a circular economy specialist in SITRA. And here in studio with me, I have Mika Sulkinoja, who is the grandmaster behind WCEF World Circular Economy Forum online, initiated by SITRA. SITRA is a public-private organization. Our task is to ensure that there's a future Finland tomorrow, so that we are tasked to develop that, which is why circular economy is one of our key solutions and one thing that we are pushing forward the most for the past 5 years now already. Mm-hmm. And our role is to accelerate the whole Finnish society towards a circular one, and which is where also the public sector becomes somewhat necessary. So the circular economy is actually the economic model of the future. And since our current system has a huge error, the world is only 9% circular. We're losing a lot of materials. We're losing a lot about the usage possibilities of the level of the stuff that is already produced. So we're over consuming, we are losing, but this is we see this as a huge opportunity. And since us in Finland, we are less than 1 per mil of the whole global population, we cannot solve this all by ourselves, which is why we turn it global to the global audience at the very early stage, which is where WCEF comes in handy.
Yeah, indeed. World Circular Economy Forum was something we invented during the times when Finland was doing its first national roadmap for circularity, first country in the world, actually. And we thought that it doesn't make sense to try and be forerunners on our own. So therefore, we created this platform, WCEF. It's a place where we thought that we need a place where we can feature solutions, best practices. Those can be policy innovations or technological innovations or new type of business models, which we can share between the countries, between the businesses and municipal administrations, for example. And from the very get-go, we have had this idea of transparency. The software industry calls it open source approach. So we think that the circular business models should not be a secret. They should be shared between all of us. So the global community should be aware of those possibilities. I think it was Stinte van Veldhoven who 2 days ago attended the World Circular Economy Forum online and said that circular economy is not a secret weapon. We should use it and harness it. We have really tried to be inspirational with these cases and try to trigger the transition with the good cases.
Exactly, and we really want to showcase, we want to inspire, but also challenge that we need everybody on board to make the world change, actually.
Exactly, exactly. But now let's loosen our hips and see how we started our WCF online 2 days ago.
Shake your body, baby, do that conga. No, you can't control yourself any longer. Come on, shake your body, baby, do that conga. No, you can't control yourself any longer. Come on, shake your body, baby, do that conga. No, you can't control yourself any longer. Feel the rhythm of the music getting stronger. Don't you fight it, feel it, try to do that conga beat.
Back from the exotic fields. I think we should call the forum actually a festival too. And circular economy is it should be fun.
That's true.
Yeah.
Although the framing is rather serious.
True.
Yeah. The forum 2 days ago started with actually two fathers. SITRA's president Jyrki Katainen, the father of Circular Economy Action Plan in Europe, and Executive Vice President of European Commission, Mr. Frans Timmermans, the father of the Green Deal. Let's see how they framed the situation and painted the big picture and the economic situation we're in.
2015. But tell us, Jyrki, what will be happening next? I believe we'll have a colleague, a former colleague of yours, joining us online.
Indeed, the first speaker of the event will be Frans Timmermans, who is Executive Vice President of the European Commission, who is, by the way, also the top official in charge of climate action, EU's climate action. Frans Timmermans and I, together with then Environment Commissioner Carmen Vella, indeed, we worked on the first circular economy action plan. And I think it was a good start, good basis for the current Green Deal. And now I'm very eager to hear if Frans has something interesting to say about the Green Deal, which is the major policy initiative of the current Ursula von der Leyen's Commission. So very good to hear you. Very good to get you here, Frans, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Jyrki, and it's so good to see you, even if it's in the service as well. Dear friends, I'm speaking to you from the attic of our home. One of our kids was tested positive for COVID, so we are now all in lockdown. But still, I have the opportunity to talk to you this morning, and I think the circular economy is something I'm passionate about. Jyrki and I worked on this for many years together. We jointly, under his leadership, made the first circular economy action plan, and now, of course, we're working in completely different circumstances. When we presented our Green Deal, it was in response to, in fact, a number of challenges we had. First of all, of course, the existence threatening challenge of the climate crisis combined with the biodiversity crisis, and also the fact that we're in the middle of an industrial revolution that will create tectonic changes in our societies and our economy that we need to address. We never anticipated the pandemic, but there it came. And now the crisis we face is even more compelling. Before the pandemic, perhaps we still had a choice to change now or to change a bit later. And this was sort of the debates we had with many people. Should we change now or could we wait a bit? This option is no longer on the table. We have no choice. We have to make sure that the funds that have been mobilized worldwide, but especially also in the European Union, are used wisely in our recovery efforts. Are used wisely, and there I mean are used in a way that sets our society and our economy on a sustainable track. I think what is the biggest threat today in this recovery phase, and I hope we can soon get to the recovery phase, by the way, is that we would start throwing money at the old economy just to survive. And then this money will soon be stranded in assets that have no future. You know, I became a grandfather 2 months ago, and when I held my grandson for the first time, this thought came to me that what is the world going to be like when he's 20 years old? And the next thought was that if we get it wrong now, in the next couple of years, the dystopian world he might inherit is something I don't want to be felt responsible for. So we need to get it right now. And I honestly believe that there is no way we can come out of this crisis. There is no way we can confront the life-threatening issue of the climate crisis and the biodiversity crisis without a circular economy.
Ooh, serious words. Do you, Marlena, remember how Timmermans continued after this statement? He said that this is not about saving the planet. This is about saving the humanity.
Indeed, because the planet will thrive.
Quite a bold statement that as well. At the same time, we heard someone saying at our forum that, for example, fashion industry's emissions equals to aviation and shipping together. So the way we use clothes is seriously polluting our environment.
Exactly, and there are huge inefficiencies in the system, as I stated earlier. But actually, as the Minister of Environment for the Netherlands, Tientje van Veldhoven, stated, the material use is also half of the problem, but it's also half of the opportunity.
True.
Yeah.
There are actually many things which need to happen so that the transition can happen. I recall United Nations Environment Programme's Executive Director Inger Andersen laying out 3 points actually which need to happen so that the change can take place. The policies and incentives need to be put in place. That was very clear. So the policymakers stay tuned and are alerted. Business and finance need to step up. Good movement already there, quite a lot of companies and money moving to the right direction. Then the final point she made was related to consumers. The consumers need to be aware of the issues, and they need to be harnessed with the right technologies, and digitalization offers great opportunities there.
Yeah. And how do we want to ensure that all of these operations, all these actions are in line, that everybody, all the stakeholders are involved. So, which is why, as Mika stated earlier, we built as actually the world's first roadmap to a circular economy here in Finland back in 2016 already. And which is not, well, it's a strategy paper, but it's more like it's more an action plan. And it's the process that's the key. It's a way that we get everybody on board, everybody around the same table to discuss what's their own role in creating circular economy. What is the role of the lawmaker? What is the role of the business? What is the role of the consumer? And to make sure that they are in line and they focus their actions towards circular economy. Yeah. So we get everybody on board.
That's true. It needs to be a process rather than a document, a blueprint. So it's continuous iterative process.
Exactly. And it's not something you can't copycat to another place from another, even though the roadmaps might look quite similar in the end, but the process is the key, which is why we launched a guidebook towards the circular economy roadmap in the WCEF on Tuesday, actually.
That's almost what Timmermans was after when he was underlying the importance of partnerships. He actually launched an initiative, EU-wide initiative, for Global Circular Economy Alliance, actually. So the European Union calling for partnerships throughout the whole world, including public sector and private sector to come together and share best practices and ideas how circularity could be scaled up globally.
Exactly.
That's pretty much something what we have been trying to do with our forum, actually.
Yes, indeed, it has. Yeah. Oh, quite successful, I might ask.
Speaking about partnerships, the private sector is very important. Like I mentioned already, private sector is getting more and more interested about circularity, and there's a reason for that. It makes good business. So economic viability is getting clearer and clearer, and the competitiveness of those companies which have used circular business models is actually better compared to those which have been using linear business models. And that has been actually proven during these hard COVID-19 times. The resilience of those businesses has been actually better compared to the old-fashioned entrepreneurs. But hey, let's listen to Business Europe, how they view the situation and what kind of opportunities and obstacles they see as well in circular economy.
To check it out. We are developing new business models with various directions. And one of the main targets is, of course, to extend the lifetime of products. And this can, of course, be done in various ways. One is to develop product as a service business models, which in other words means that you no longer sell a product, but you lease it to your customer. And this means you retain ownership. It's easier for you to get it back at the right moment. It's easier for you to update it when necessary, and also to extract the raw materials and therefore contribute to circularity. The truth in the market is we still have several obstacles to overcome together in order to really make this flourish and to make these models profitable. One is we still have a consumer bias towards ownership, because first, I mean, everybody feels better when he owns something. and people also think it's cheaper. So there we need to overcome. There's learning costs. We precisely see that in the public sector, very often there is legal requirements, which at the end makes public procurement go the easy way and not enter into the legal necessities you have with a leasing contract. And last but not least, there's legal challenges. Of course, we need long-time relationships with the customer, and sometimes the mix of European and national company law is not allowing for this. So there's a lot we still have to look at together in order to really create the circumstances in order to make these new models flourish. But we think there is all reason to do so, and we stand ready to be partner of the European Commission and, of course, of Commissioner Sinkevičius to really make this happen and to implement it in a coherent way, which makes business and environmental sense. Thank you.
Yeah, I really want to grab from what Mr. Bayral mentioned about public procurement.
Sure,
it's indeed a powerful tool to make the world flourish and advance circular economy, because about 15% of GDP is public procurements. So every time a city uses money, it can use it to advance circular economy in a matter how it produces its services, how the food system operates, how the transportation operates, how it builds its infrastructure, as well as other services, waste management, and all of this. So this is a huge opportunity for cities to harness the money it's already using.
That's true.
Yeah.
We heard good examples from US as well. Surprisingly, at least a surprise to me, how actively, for example, the city of Phoenix has incorporated circularity in their purchase policies, and the whole city is meant to be circular in a couple of years' time.
Yeah, and this is an excellent way to create markets and to stimulate innovation in a city. So cities operate really as a test bed for collaboration between the companies and the city as well.
Indeed.
Yeah.
The other signal I got from US was that the companies actually were not waiting for the policymakers or the cities to make this transition to circularity. So actually the business community, the financial sector, was leading the transition in the US and in Canada, perhaps somewhat different in Europe.
That's true, yeah.
But indeed, the cities can be a good test beds for innovations and startups to grow and flourish. Let's take a look at the one of the cases we had featured as part of the online, Tmill from the UK.
The purpose of Tmill is to make a working circular supply chain for clothing, and then to scale it by sharing all the technology we developed to make it possible. The circular economy is not about ripping apart the economy today and replacing it with something else. It's actually just an iterative improvement. And it looks and feels a lot like the economy at the moment. The t-shirt that I'm wearing is made out of waste, but it feels the same. The difference is that what we do is design out waste. And when we actually think about what that means from a business point of view, you're talking about recovering the product that you made and remaking it, instead of throwing that in the bin and going out and buying another one. Our message is really simple. This is working today with the technology that we've already got. So what are we waiting for?
Yeah, the Tmill, that case example was really inspiring.
Indeed.
They're already making good business with circular
Yeah.
economy.
What are we waiting for?
What are we waiting for? Indeed.
Yeah.
And we, well, this was one of the cases of 39 cases we showcased on the global list. We also have a national list of 129 of the most inspiring Finnish circular economy business cases.
Yeah, really, and that's only the top of the iceberg. We have actually, as part of this forum preparations, we raided the whole globe actually and looked at all continents and tried to identify what's cooking, bubbling under in terms of sustainable innovations. And there were plenty of good young entrepreneurs with business ideas, which are really using the circularity in their business models.
Exactly. And this is a really inspiring place for also public sector to step in on how the administration could pave the way for these businesses to help them flourish, help them do better.
Yeah.
But we've learned a lot of things from the past 2 days from the hundreds of speakers and what total 6 sessions.
Yep.
How do you summarize this up, Mika?
Perhaps my key takeaway is that the timing is right. Green stimulus funds are being poured into our economies. And that at the same time when the investors, the financial sector is really getting interested in circular business models. We have, for example, one of the leading financial houses, BlackRock, has a dedicated fund nowadays for circularity. We heard yesterday from 3M, for example, they were currently doing their investor round, that the investors were asking where's their sustainability, and especially asking for circularity in their businesses. So investors are getting ready to harness this as a business opportunity. And that with green stimulus funds, with a blended finance approach, I think we could get far.
Yeah, indeed.
Perhaps the other point I wish to make here is the link to climate change. I recall Minister Schmidt from Chile yesterday telling us that she's going to report about the circular actions in her country under the Paris Agreement. A lot of countries have planned to report on the mitigations actions in terms of energy transition, but still very few countries have thought how circular economy can help them to mitigate greenhouse gases and also help them to adapt to climate change. So clearly that will be in the toolbox of climate policies in the future as well.
Exactly, and circular economy is a powerful tool for tackling climate change, to figure out mitigation solutions, since nearly 70% of all CO2 emissions are linked to material management. And you mentioned countries, but cities have even more ambitious CO2 emission mitigation targets than the countries. It's a really inspiring way to actually do actively something about it, not just like to change the way you do, not just stop doing things.
Exactly.
And another point I want to bring from cities is that about how partnerships and collaborations are the key to success in this way. And that even though circular economy is really a global thing, all the actions happen locally, so that the best solutions are put forward by the areas, by the cities, by the communities that bring together different organizations, or the people living in the cities actually using the services, as well as the companies. And this way, going from global to local, it offers a great opportunity for job creation, as well as the platform for sharing the best practicalities and push them forward.
Yeah, best practices is something which is very close to the operation of SITRA. And I need to warn you, this can be contagious. Circular economy can be contagious. The best practices which this forum hopefully is able to inspire you guys in order to figure out what is the best solutions for you guys to take a look and scale up together with your partners and in your cities.
Well said, Mika. That nicely wrapped it all up. Back to you, John.
Well, thank you both. And it's very clear that you're excited and your excitement is contagious. I'm excited and I'm hoping the audience is excited. So in that spirit, and I'm actually very interested to hear about Tmill in my own country. I hadn't heard of them. And one of the wonders and the joys of this whole area is that you keep coming across new people doing new stuff. And I think that's immensely exciting. In that spirit, though, let me ask you a question to start with about language. I kicked off with joking in a way about my inability to speak Finnish, but I spent the last sort of 40 to 50 years trying to get the world to speak, firstly, the language of sustainability, and then we've had circularity coming through, and now we've got regeneration, and all of these wonderful concepts are coming through. And in the early stages, people don't understand them, and then they think they understand them, and then quite often they degrade them. And Mika, you mentioned Phoenix. I haven't been to Phoenix for about 50 years, but I remember it as a city that's completely built around the car. And here you are saying that within a few years, they're going to go circular. How can we make sure that we are talking about reality and not degrading and diluting language? I mean, because people all want to be circular suddenly. I've just been asked to join an initiative for a circular Chicago. Well, wonderful. To take an old industrial city and bring it in, haul it screaming into the 21st century. But how can we slow down or stop the degradation of language?
Should I start?
Go ahead.
It's a very good question. I remember I was visiting Vietnam actually just before the COVID-19 broke out. And then the administration there asked, I came up with a new concept, circular economy. How does this differ from green economy, sustainability, all that stuff? Yet another buzzword. But I think circular economy still, it contains some fundamental principles which haven't really been featured and portrayed that strongly. For example, these regenerative approaches, design out waste, those type of issues, which have been on the table, but not in this situation where really the biodiversity loss is most severe. The climate change threat is really acute. So I think the buy-in of this not new, but this concept is a good one. And also it brings a positive narrative, which should stay with us. I mean, we need hope during this dystopic times. And circular economy certainly is something which brings hope, like Marlena told us earlier today. So I'm a strong believer that this concept remains and then stays out with a longer time, because it's really challenges the whole paradigm we live.
Exactly, and I want to grab that a little bit. Yeah, it's because since it's a positive and it's activating way of being and doing. And well, I promise to use systemic change word only once, but it is part of the systemic change, but it includes the business model. It has the word economy there. So it's a new way of doing better by business as well. So new way of operating towards change of design, change of ownership, change of systems, how we understand, how we collaborate, how we basically, well, my personal favorite part of circular economy is the change of ownership, actually. It's how you don't need to own anything yourself. It's more about sharing and using as a service.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I love that spirit, and I think we need to be optimistic and we need to communicate hope to people, but we've also got to be, forgive the technical term, willing to call out bullshit when people claim to be circular or regenerative. And you know, Walmart have just declared that their commitment to become a regenerative company during sort of Climate Week. This is their CEO. And one part of me is immensely excited, and one part of me looks at their business model and thinks, my God, there is a very big distance between where you are now and where you would need to be. And let me just pick up on that, which is in Europe, particularly in the EU, the circular economy debate is very much advancing. Frans Timmermans was just, very personally articulating why he, in a way, as a bureaucrat, wants to drive these sorts of systemic changes. You look in the United States and you have something quite other, at least at the federal government level. But as you've already described in places like Phoenix, there's this different movement. It's coming down to cities. And I'd love to hear your views on what the interplay is and ought to be between the different levels of government. We know in China, the state has one role, Saudi Arabia, another, in Germany versus the United States or whatever, it's very different. So it's difficult to generalize. But where do you see that sort of interplay between the different levels of government working well?
Okay, that's it's an excellent question. We need them. We need all the pieces working together, as well as stated with the roadmap process. Yeah. And well, we're starting from your first part of it. The change doesn't happen overnight, so it has to be built little by little. Is it a large company or a city or a whole government changing its legislation towards supporting circular economy, so that it's a play where all the actors are basically needed. Sometimes, depending on the area, depending on the country, sometimes cities can be more they can operate in a more flexible way than on the higher up level.
That's true.
Yeah.
John, I would like to pick on the issue of you did not speak about greenwashing, but you mentioned that there are a number of organizations claiming to be circular. There's quite a lot of work and emphasis is going now to metrics, how you measure circularity at the country level, at the business level, and I think we should be in a road where these things, the pollution and the use of materials will be priced accordingly, how much harm they cause and what is the damage to the environment. And if we take that route, we really have to measure the input the companies are taking and how circular they are in the operations, and price that into the operations of the companies, in order to really be certain that the companies are working in the circular manner. And to do that change, to reflect price of those externalities to companies, to public administration, we're a long way to go. It takes ages to really harness taxation and the pricing as instrument to that. But really, first steps in order to measure the circularity and factor that into the business decision. So I see steps being taken to that way, and companies are at least taking that seriously. For example, this World's Business Council for Sustainable Development has developed metrics how really the companies can integrate circularity into their core strategies, and not just as part of their sustainability reporting, which quite often are used as for PR purposes.
Yeah, I want to come on in a second to a question about younger people and all of this, but just on metrics, I'm as enthusiastic as the next person about measuring, whether we're making progress or not. I've spent since the early 90s working on so-called sustainability reporting, and what we've seen there is massive fragmentation, and particularly as that came into the mainstream, you had all sorts of people wanting to stake out claims, get their own branding in there and so on. So you've now had the 4 big accounting companies saying this is a mess, and it's an alibi for people not doing what they really ought to be doing. So we're going to pull all of this together into one standard. And I just wonder whether we're going to need something like that in the circular city space, and whether that's something the forum itself has already initiated, or it's something you plan to drive over time, because I do think it's going to be needed.
That's true. I don't recall us speaking about circular measurement in the city level, or have we?
No, we haven't.
Yeah.
And the metrics are tricky, since they need to take into account not just the material flows or the material wastage flows,
Yeah.
but they need to take
Yeah.
into account
Yeah.
what is the usage level of
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
products made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are actually some experiments in the Netherlands. I recall some Amsterdam, for example, has been
Yeah.
trying to really measure the circularity at the city level. So yeah, there are examples.
And so much of the footprint, in a way, of a city or an urban region is outside their national boundaries, and being able to sort of track that back is quite a challenge. But anyway, younger people, and Marlena, you're interested in the people side of this particularly. Let me ask a question. I've been on a number of the school climate striker marches, and I've talked to the young people, and I'm both excited about their interest suddenly in these sorts of issues and their passion to see change. But I'm also quite alarmed about the risk of younger people becoming disengaged when they do not see effective, timely action. So what is the forum doing, and what are you collectively doing to pull younger people in, to engage them, to give them the skills and the information that they need to help drive change?
That's an excellent question. And yeah, we really need our youth involved and being part. But where circular economy comes in here, we have been, well, as a SITRA, we've been holding a lot of speeches, giving a lot of inspiration for young people to understand how, well, climate change is a horrible thing, but circular economy can be the solution to do that. And as mentioned, to bring hope in that matter. So that we have actually produced 26 courses to all levels of education here in Finland. So it's integrated in the whole education system of Finland already, so that the kids have tools on, okay, how do we need to change? How can I be part of the change, not just like, bring hope.
Yeah.
And it's not just about the kids who need to change, obviously, or need to do better. Everybody needs to start doing better already today, which is why lifelong learning is something else that needs to ante up.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree with that. I'm 71, and I see quite a number of people of my age retiring or talking about retiring. I have no intention of retiring, and largely because I think the next 10 to 15 years are going to be by far the most exciting, by far the most challenging, and by far the most dangerous of my entire working career. And I see people of my age basically saying, we were environmentalists. No, they weren't. They drove SUVs and a bunch of other things. And now we failed. And now we're going to hand it over to the younger people to sort it out. I think that's deadly. I think we've got to work on pan-generational solutions and sort of almost political dynamics. And has SITRA or has the forum looked at that sort of dimension of all of this? I mean, obviously it happens naturally to some degree in cities, less so perhaps in companies, but have you worked on it?
On giving more
bringing the different generations together to work collectively on some of these big systemic challenges, because in a way the older people have the wealth, they have the influence, they vote much more than younger people. So I just think those bridges need to be built, and built quite, and it may well be in Finland they would exist and it's not an issue. So I may be raising a question which is nonsensical to Finns.
Yeah, in a way we've done it. We've really featured, for example, that the old generation did not take and use and then dispose. They really were really careful with the things they owned. They took care of those issues and really, they were economical in their thinking, and they used actually the circular economy principles, and we tried to portray that as a good example, not really going back to the old times, but really looking at the agrarian society of Finland, for example, that there were good practices there. So that is perhaps one example, but I think you're right, and I'm happy to hear that you're, John, never going to retire. That so you're
we still need you.
Well, that's all I was fishing for. Then we heard from Tmill that, in a sense, this is incremental. It's not going to change your world very much, and we can, fiddle, and your t-shirts can be made out of waste textiles and all the rest of it. Do you believe that? Because frankly, I don't.
We need incremental and systemic
We
changes.
need both, yes.
We had, for example, Apple yesterday, whether it's greenwashing or not, but they are serious in their outcomes when they speak about circularity. So the big tech houses, big brands, hopefully they are taking this seriously, at least in their speeches yesterday. For example, Apple's top chief was telling that they are really looking to be so modular, for example, that the appliances can be reused and repurposed and remanufactured, for example. So these big brands really can make the difference and lead the way. But we need innovations which the big houses can harness and take on board when they grow and think about new business models.
Exactly. And as well as the companies need to operate together as a sector to build up the system that works better for the whole sector. So not just individual companies, but to build life cycle material flows that really help the other company from the another one. And another, actually, what is pushing towards what they're working with in Apple is the Circular Economy Action Plan by EU that's going to launch a right to repair directive next year, which is actually super inspiring. No one knows yet what it will look like, but already the statement that you have the right to repair. That's a lot.
Well, it's interesting because I've used Apple technology for over 20 years. And for much of that time, I was ashamed of the company. When you went to their environment page, it was in sort of dull green and brown colors, totally unlike normal Apple design. You could see what they thought of all of this. And now, as you say, they're building in the design. But I once had a very public collision with Johnny Ive, then the designer for Apple. And I was raising some of the problems that they were having in their Chinese factories with, worker dormitories and so on. And he became quite angry. And I think there was a defensive culture in Apple, which I'm increasingly seeing disappearing. And I think, the 100% renewable energy approach and all of these sorts of things is very exciting. But there's a huge jump. I mean, our house is full of old Apple technology, and I'm sure I could take it into the Apple store and have it replaced. But what would happen to it then? So I think there's these big companies. It's wonderful they're making these commitments like Walmart and so on, but they've still got quite a long way to go. And I wanted to ask you both a question about the perception of Finland and the forum as a result of that, because Scandinavia is not perfect, but it's a long way ahead of much of the rest of the world. And so when SITRA or the forum or you both go out to other parts of the world, Mika, you mentioned Vietnam, do people sort of respond by saying, well, that's fine for Scandinavians, that's fine for Finland, but it's going to take us 500 years to get anywhere near that? Or are they playing the game? I mean, what's your experience?
Well, at the pre-pandemic time, I was in South Africa as well as in Côte d'Ivoire and Abidjan, having speeches on circular economy to the African audience. And that was really inspiring because I heard so many inspiring local cases of young entrepreneurs already doing circular economy, not complaining like, okay, we don't have the opportunities of a Nordic country, but instead like, okay, this looks different than it does in Helsinki or in Oslo, but we're already doing this by our own rules and figuring out how to do it best. So yeah, of course they are different. The world looks different in different places, but circular economy is still an opportunity.
That's true. To use the Tmill case, one size does not fit all. We have tried to underline that as part of our national roadmap process as well. For example, African Development Bank called for collaboration on helping African countries to deliver their own national roadmaps. And from the very beginning, we said that this is the way it was done in Finland. Certainly the circumstances, the culture, the environment is different. You need to do your own. But perhaps there are certain principles embedded into the national roadmap planning, which you could utilize when collecting people together and talk about circularity and tailor make the circular plan for your country.
Exactly. And even though here in Finland, we have quite good, for example, waste management infrastructure in place, but we're so behind in sharing economy solutions, which is something that is really embedded in cultures in all around the world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating. I mean, we're coming towards a conclusion. It's a fascinating agenda, and you're both incredibly articulate. I didn't warn you of the question I'm about to ask you because it's only just occurred to me. But if you were brain surgeons and you were faced with a standard issue bureaucrat or a standard issue bureaucratic brain, what would you cut out of it and what would you try and insert into it? I mean, it's a slightly overdramatic question, but what is the problem that we face with bureaucrats and bureaucracies? And I'm sure many people listening are bureaucrats, or they're married to bureaucrats, or they have one in the family somewhere. What do these people need to do to equip themselves for what comes next?
I don't know whether there is such a department as can't do in our brains, but I would cut that off. You know?
Yeah. Exactly, for sure. That's a tough question.
Yeah.
I think maybe something like forget everything you know and do something totally different. Maybe that would be it.
Well, I think one of the things I've seen and I've tried very hard not to work with government for about 40 years now, having done a lot of work with government, is that there is this siloing. There is this sort of, it's somebody else's problem and somebody else's responsibility, and people protect their bottoms, their interests, rather than having this sort of deep passion to drive change. And I think you see more of that passion to drive change in the business community, and you're beginning to see elements of that in the impact investment world in the financial market. And you're also seeing it in cities, but it's less obvious at the moment, at least, that you see it at the national and international government level. And my own instinct is that we've created and we've inherited and we've grown up in a geopolitical and macroeconomic order that sort of dates from the Second World War pretty much. And it's starting to unravel. It's starting to come apart all around us. And populism is an opportunistic infection almost in that process. But I don't think we're suddenly going to turn around. So that question was, so what do we then need to do? How is it that public servants can not just serve their current masters, but properly serve future generations? And I just wonder where you see good examples of that happening.
I love the term current masters. Yeah, but linked to your silo thinking is that circular economy doesn't happen in one ministry. It's not just the Ministry of Environment or on that level. It happens in all ministerial levels, all ministerial sectors, and the silos need to be cut up. And one thing that I now would cut from the brain of the person would be like cut off the limitations. Because okay, this is on my table, this is what I can do. This okay, I cannot operate with that thing. That's not circular economy. So cut off the limitations and bring out the possibilities.
Well, I sometimes wonder whether what's happened with the sort of globalization process and business increasingly in the spotlight and entrepreneurs celebrated, that people who would once have gone into the public sector, once gone into government, have gone into the private sector. And some of that entrepreneurial talent and that innovative talent has sort of been drained away from the public sector. I don't know whether that's any part of your experience. I may be too gloomy. I may be too pessimistic.
Yeah, I echo your thinking there. I don't know how to do this, but I think our public administration is built to be risk averse.
Yeah.
Naturally, if you are a clerk there, you do your job and according to the legislation, and no one is rewarding you. For example, if you hire an innovative company which is a little bit more expensive, but creates a public good, for example, better environment. So if that goes bust, it's your fault. But if that goes well, no one actually notices that. So it's the whole system is built that way. So you got to be risk averse. how to promote such a risk-taking approach that the one clerk in the administration can really make a difference by hiring someone else or recruiting services and not buying in stuff, or really applying the circular principles.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I think I'm going to sort of move us towards a conclusion. And I just want to say two things. One is I'm regretting very severely that I did not wear a nicer t-shirt or a t-shirt today. And I've been struggling to work out whether the red dot or the green dot is most seductive. And I think green probably, given all sorts of reasons I like. But the other thing you've both managed to do, and with those videos as well, is to give, I'm sure, not just me, but other members of the audience, a sense that we really wish that been physically part of the forum. It sounds very exciting. And I just wanted to end by saying, well done, SITRA, and well done, the forum, for doing what you've been doing, for taking a stand and for sort of signaling this really important emergent agenda. I think one of the things I've seen in business in recent years, there was a period when CEOs and major companies got terribly excited about the Sustainable Development Goals. And they thought, now we're going to deliver this and we're going to change the world and we're going to serve society. And what they found increasingly is it's bloody hard to do that. And they can't do it on their own. And particularly when they bring into play their supply chains. And so they're working increasingly with business-to-business platforms. You mentioned WCSD. There are many others out there as well. And they're also recognizing, and it's not terribly popular in some parts of business, particularly in the United States, that they're going to have to work with government. And I think that's a big part of what comes next. And I think very often it's easier to work with city governments than it is with national governments, although business obviously has to do both of those. But I think circularity really requires of us to not just say SDG 17 is about partnership, and we've got some nice little partnerships, but really think strategically about how we shift the system. So again, desperately disappointed not to have been with you. Thank you both for being part of this, and look forward to tracking SITRA and the forum as they evolve over time. But thanks again.
Thanks a lot, John. And like I said, don't retire so that we have hope also in the future.
Yeah, the world is not ready yet.
I'll go and tell my wife immediately. Thank you both.